Welcome to another episode of Car Thoughts with Mark Adam. Today I want to talk about how to eat at a restaurant. I'm a server, bartender. I've been a bar manager before. I eat out at restaurants quite a bit. I have seen from pretty much every angle what can go right and wrong in a restaurant. There are such things as terrible servers, there are such things as terrible bar managers, but there are absolutely terrible patrons. Terrible guests that when they show up, you can tell right away. You're just like, nope, this is not going to be a fun table to serve. So, let me walk you through the process on how to not be a tool bag at a restaurant.
Bye guys, thank you. Have a great night.
First off, once you have decided on which restaurant you would like to go to, if there is sufficient time, give a heads up. If you are a group of more than six or less, just show up. More than six, give a quick heads up. Hey, we'd like to, we're on our way in, just a heads up. That way the restaurant can set up for you. It's a lot easier for everyone. And my advice to anyone who is a host and or server that is watching this, when someone calls and gives you a heads up like this, don't go, well, okay, whatever, who cares, just show up. That's not helpful. Because that same group, if they just showed up and you're that server, when they walk into the restaurant, you're like, can't even call ahead. You knew you were going somewhere, blah, blah, blah. Like, you're this, like, don't give people attitude for giving a calling. So I guess this will be a little bit on both sides, but I want to come at it more from how to be a patron. So once you've either made your reservation or not, you decided where you're going, you go. Once you walk in the door, if you are not greeted by a host or a hostess, look for a sign. 90% of the time, there is a sign. And it will read, please seat yourself, or it will read, please wait to be seated. Look for the sign. First and foremost, look for the sign. I don't know how many times people walk in, right into the restaurant, and they're picking tables, and they're like, oh, I didn't see the sign. Like, well, you had to walk around it to get to where you are. So, look for the sign. The next step is to obey the sign. If it says, please wait to be seated, please wait to be seated. Also, if someone says, it'll just be a moment, and you see open tables, that doesn't mean that those tables are okay for you to sit at right away. Okay? Please wait to be seated means please wait to be seated. There is a rotation happening. Servers have a rhythm that they are building. They can only greet and get the first round of drinks for so many tables at a time. When you double and triple sit servers, then instead of waiting at the door, where most people are a lot more comfortable waiting, you end up getting a table, and then once you have a table, you're looking around for a server who is busy at another table, and then you're like, oh, the service here sucks. Well, no, it's just you rushed your seating. You would have been served in the same amount of time had you stayed at the door, but you wouldn't have felt like the service was crap. There's a rotation, there's a rhythm. Get on board from the beginning with the rhythm. I will grant you that some hostesses and hosts are not great at that, mostly because a lot of the time hostesses and hosts are hostesses and hosts because they're not old enough to be servers. They're very new to the industry. Those are the excuses for being a host and a hostess. So good hostesses are worth their weight in gold to servers and bartenders. But if you're walking in and it's please wait to be seated, please wait to be seated. Look for the sign and then wait. Now, you've been sat. The server comes over and asks if they can start you with, obviously, first of all, they're probably going to say hello and introduce themselves and introduce the specials to you. Don't ignore your server. Number one douchebag thing you can do is when a server walks over and says, "Hi, I'm Adam, and I'll be, can I get a..." Excuse me? I wasn't quite finished my sentence. Allow me to start over. Hi, my name is Adam. I'll be your server. Today's specials are... So, don't interrupt your server. That makes you an instant douchebag. Instant douchebag. Do not interrupt your server. Once they've given you the special... Oh, by the way, if somebody says hello to you, say hello back. It's pretty simple. So many times people walk into a restaurant, someone says, "Oh, hi there, we'll be right with you," and they just stare. Say hello. Someone said hello to you. I don't know how it works in your family, but when someone says hello to you, do you not say hello back? Is it not common courtesy to greet that person back like a human being that they are? Just a thought. So the server's taking your drink order at the beginning. Let's pretend you're not ready yet. You don't know what you want to drink. Guess what? It's okay to say, "I'm not ready yet. Can I have a moment?" That's a completely acceptable answer. You do not have to say, I'll just get a water, because you don't know what else you want. If you want a water, order a water. If you are just ordering water to make the server go away, you're a dickhead. You're a dickhead. Because now the server has to walk away, perform a task, and then come back for no reason. When it would have been much easier for that server, you know what, you need a moment? Not a problem. They go back through the rotation, they come back to you. You're probably ready by then. Don't order something just because the server happens to be at the table. That makes you a douchebag. If you don't know what you want, it is perfectly acceptable, and might I add, preferable to the server, for you to say, "May I have a moment?" Absolutely 100% acceptable. The preferable option, as far as I'm concerned, when I am serving. If you don't know what you want, I will come back. It's all good. The server always has other things they can be doing. So you've ordered your drinks, let's say. The drinks show up. If you are not ready to order food, same rule applies. Just ask for another moment. Don't go, because the server knows, we see through you when you say something like, "Oh no, I can be ready. What do you recommend?" That's called stalling, and it makes you a dickhead. That server has other things to do. Serving is the fine art of balancing your time. And when people purposely hold up the line, you're holding it up for everyone in the room, not just your server. Everyone in the room who's relying on that server is waiting for that server to come back. When you are stalling them because you're unsure, you're being a dickhead to everyone else in the room, which makes you a poor patron. It makes you a bad restaurant goer. Okay? So, if you don't know what you want, it's okay to ask for time. I cannot stress that enough. So, if you do actually need a recommendation, or you're actually stuck between, like, you know what, I really want this, but this also looks good, which would you choose? And you want like an actual recommendation, ask. You know, look, this looks really good, but this looks really good. Which would you choose? You know what? I would choose that. Great, I'll get that. That is a perfectly acceptable exchange. So I'm just throwing it out there. If you don't know what you want, ask for more time. And if you only ask for things when you actually need them. I can't stress that enough. Don't just ask for water just cause, and don't ask for recommendations to stall, and all of that. Okay? Because it just makes you an asshole to the server. And then your server is pissed off with you. And any server worth their weight will still treat you the same, but they're going to be pissed off with you and impatient, which means they're going to come around as little as possible, because if you're going to stall them and hold them there, they're going to make sure everyone else is fine before they get stuck with you at that table. If you're going to purposely stall them there, or give the server busy work, because I'll do the busy work for you if that's what you want, absolutely. But I'm going to make sure everyone else is taken care of before I do that unnecessary busy work for you. I love conversation with my tables. I absolutely love it. So if there is time, I will chat with you until I'm blue in the face. My managers are more than well aware of this. But if you're just creating busy work for me and stalling me because you need time, that just makes you an asshole. If there is an issue with the dish, please alert your server as quickly and as politely as you can. I will tell you right now, if you ever snap at me, I'm not sure about other servers. Most servers absolutely hate this. But me in particular, I'm going on my own personal, but if you snap at me, I will yell at you. I will yell at you. I am not a dog, I am not a pet, and I am not a servant. That's the confusion that some people get into. Servers are not servants, and I am here to serve you. I am not here to be your slave or abused by you. And if I talk to me like I'm a human being, and I will treat you like a human being, I think that's more than fair. If you snap at me, if you whistle at me, if you yell at me, like, obviously I'm not saying like, oh, excuse me, that's not yelling at someone. Speaking up, like raising your voice to be heard and yelling at someone are different. When you get those guys that are like, hey, I'll be right with you. And then I'm purposely going to find something else to do before I go back to that table. Because that's rude and you're being a jerk. And I'm going to give you a second to bring yourself down. Because if I go over there and you're already yelling, and I am here to help you have a great time. And I'm like more than happy to do so. I only work for companies when I can help it. I only work for companies that I like the product, I like the people I work with. So I want to be an ambassador to the place that I work. But I will not let myself be abused to get that across. So if you're coming in thinking you're going to yell at me, snap at me, that kind of an attitude, nope, not going to fly. I do not put up with that crap. So where were we now? To the service point. Basically, yes, if you have an issue with your food, alert your server right away. Give the server the opportunity to fix it. They should do something to the effect of, would you like me to get you a new one, or let me get my manager for you? And if it's like, sometimes it's something where, one, the server doesn't have enough time to deal with it properly, so let's get the manager involved. Or two, it's something that the server doesn't know how to deal with. Whatever the reason, let the server have an opportunity to rectify the situation. Otherwise, at the end of the meal, that is not an okay time to say, well, this was wrong and this was wrong and this was wrong. Particularly if, and I guarantee this is the case with all of my tables, the server quality checks you. So after your first couple of bites, the server should come around to you and say something to the effect of, how is it so far? Or how are the first few bites? Or something like that. If they don't, if they're super, super swamped, that's totally a different story. And I had one of those nightmare days the other day, to be honest, where life was unmanageable. There was 2 of us in an entire restaurant that was full. No managers, no expo, no hosts. It was a server nightmare day. It was it was pretty bad. It was pretty bad. But got through it and whatever. Most of the people were great. I had one guy be upset, and it's not like he was wrong. It's not like I could say, you know what, you're wrong, you know? You're right. Service took a long time. I apologize that me by myself with short-handed kitchen, we had 2 people in the kitchen cooking, we had 2 servers on the floor for an entire restaurant that normally has 5 servers plus a bartender plus a host plus a manager. That was a rough day, okay? I'll give you that. But when, you know, as a server, you set the expectation, look, I'm really sorry, I'm really busy, it's going to be a bit of a wait, I'll get to you as soon as I can, as quickly as I can, I'll be back around as often as I can. And people were pretty great about it. There was one guy that was a bit of a dick about it. And you know what? That wasn't bad. That wasn't bad. So, don't complain about your crap at the end of the meal is my point. That is not the right time. When you discover something is amiss with your meal, servers like nothing more than the opportunity to fix that problem at the time rather than dealing with it at the end when you've already eaten it, so we can't do anything about it. Because when we go to our manager, you've already eaten it and you didn't complain about it at the time when you were quality checked. What are you going to do? For example, I had served a pizza to a guy. I won't say how long ago this was or what restaurant it was, because it happens at all restaurants. Okay, this is something that can happen anywhere. It's an honest mistake. Served a guy pizza. Has 2 slices in them already of an 8-slice pizza. You know. So I quality check him. How is it? Oh, it's great. I get this all the time. It's perfect. Blah, blah, blah. Great. No problem. Gentleman then continues to eat his pizza. Then all of a sudden, about 4 or 5 minutes later, excuse me, so gets my attention politely. So I go over and he says, there's this little chewy thing that has the consistency of plastic. So I take it to the kitchen and investigate. And it turns out it's a bread tie that had fallen into the pizza sauce. That happens. That happens. Okay? The gentleman was polite about it. Obviously it said, I'm unappetized to eat this. Can I get another? That is not a problem, right? That is when you bring up a problem. When you find the problem, this is the problem. Can we fix this problem? Yes, we can. Now, had he set that aside, not eaten that 1 slice, eaten the rest of the pizza, and then said, hey, I found this in my pizza, my manager would have done nothing for him. It's like, well, you ate the whole thing without telling us you had a problem. And I checked on the guy. So it wasn't like the guy was ignored, you know? So that was the right thing to do. And he did it in a polite way. He said, oh, excuse me. He got my attention. I went over. I asked him what the issue was. He told me the issue. I rectified the issue. We brought him a new pizza. Boom. Done. Okay? That is how to handle an issue. If you're 3 or 4 bites in and it's just straight up not very good, that is when you stop eating and you tell your server. If you complain to your server that it's not good after you've already eaten it, or one time I did have somebody complain that the food wasn't good, ate half of it, wanted all kinds of discounts, and then asked for the rest to be wrapped up. And I was like, no. Like, I can wrap this up for you and you can take it with you, or I can give you a discount and just dispose of it. Like, you can't claim that it's terrible and then want to take the rest home. Like, because obviously you're just trying to get a discount. And then on top of it, you're not going to tip the server. So, like, no, that's not the way to deal with that. If there is an issue, if it isn't good, if there's a problem with it, you tell your server right away. Then they can fix it for you. Or they can have it taken off your bill if you don't want anything else. If you're that unappetized by what happened, if you know what I mean, if you're that turned off, then we can take it off of your bill altogether and dispose of it for you. That is an acceptable alternative. You can't expect a server to give you a discount on food that you ate half of and want to take the rest home. No, not a thing. So as soon as you discover there's an issue, that is when you tell your server. Okay, that's where we're at. So then, paying the bill. If a server gives you crap about wanting to divide your 12 top table, if there's 12 of you at the table and you all want to pay individually, the server should never give you crap about that. That's your prerogative. You pay how you want. Okay? First and foremost. So if the server gives you crap, that's on the server. Don't let the server give you crap on that. If you want to pay it all in one bill, great. Now, servers sometimes love and sometimes don't. It's a gamble, right? Because who's paying the bill? Are they going to tip well? Blah, blah, blah. That's the other thing. Servers are not entitled to a tip. If you don't tip me, I'm not upset. If you're an asshole about everything and don't tip me, and I'm trying to be as pleasant as possible, or the reason some people will do this too, and this one drives me. If you don't tip me, and you tell me, I'm not tipping you, and that should be a message to your manager in your kitchen. It's like, well, they're going to get their tip out anyway, because this is how it works. When a server goes to do their cash out at the end of the day, they tip out to the house a percentage of what their sales were, not a percentage of what their tips were. Okay? So the kitchen that made the food that you didn't like, even though my service was pleasant and you told me so, but you didn't like the food, and you're not tipping me as a message to the manager or whatever, you're doing it backwards. You're punishing me because I still have to tip out based on the sales. So it actually is money out of my pocket for something that you're telling me to my face isn't my fault. Okay? In that particular scenario. Now, sometimes it is the server's fault. I have made mistakes serving tables. I will always do whatever I can to make up for it, and if you choose not to tip me, that's fine. It's completely fine if you choose not to tip me. It's completely fine in your prerogative if you choose not to tip me. But if you choose not to tip me, at least know what that means. If you choose not to tip the server, what you are doing is causing that server to pay out of pocket for having served you. Just so you know, that's how it works. It's roughly around 5%. That's what it works out to. That's industry standard-ish. Okay? And you can argue that, oh, that's not how it should be. Well, that's not, that maybe it isn't, maybe that's not how it should be. That's how it is. And you can argue till you're blue in the face that that shouldn't be a thing, but that's how it is. So get that through your head right now. Servers tip out roughly 5% of their sales. End of story. So, it's your prerogative not to tip. You do not have to tip. Servers should never feel entitled to a tip. But I just want you to know what happens when you don't tip so that you're making an informed decision. What I do when I have terrible service or really, just a horrible experience at a restaurant is I tip 5%, because then their tip out is covered. They're not paying out of pocket, but they're not going to make money on me today. One time in particular, I had a server who was so atrocious, and I'm not sure if it was lack of training or what. And you hate to call it restaurants, but the place where I'm with Poston Pizza, which their service is always atrocious, but in the lounge anyway. I'm not sure about the restaurant. I barely ever go in there, but every time I go into the lounge at Poston Pizza, it's the worst service. Worst. So It was so bad one time, I actually asked what the tip out was there so I could give exactly that. So it was brutal. It was brutal. She was brutal. Yeah. Anyway, it is what it is. But that's the end of my little spiel. So, in conclusion, don't be an asshole at a restaurant. Review the points I talked about. Okay? Read the sign. Don't ask for things unless you need it. Don't stall the server because you're unsure what you need. And tipping is absolutely 100% optional. It is called a gratuity for a reason. Just saying. Okay? Now, knowing all that, you can tip or not tip at your leisure. You can tip 15%, 20%, nothing, 5%. Just know what happens when you tip or don't tip. That's all. It's your money. I am of the opinion that if you can't afford to tip, if that's your excuse for not tipping, you can't afford to eat out. That is my opinion. Other people's opinions differ, but I am of the opinion that if you can't afford to tip in the society that we live in, with the understanding that we have, and the way that things work here in Canada, if you can't afford to tip, you can't afford to eat out. Now, again, your opinion may differ. You may choose not to tip. You not tipping does not make you an asshole. Depending on the reason you choose not to tip, that could make you an asshole or not. So, that's where my argument would start and end. But I'll just leave it at that for now, and we can be done. I'm about to arrive at my destination, so we will check in on you another day.